Hi everyone, today is June 18th, 2017, and this is the Duel Assessment, your podcast for Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Links. My name is GreenRanger.
And I'm DeckTech.
And it's been the first week of the Crimson Kingdom set. We've been opening the packs and getting some of the new cards and playing with the new decks. The Duel-a-thon event has been going on, and also there's been a bit of controversy floating around on the internet about the qualifiers. So, it's been an exciting week for you because you finally accomplished a skill, getting a skill that you wanted from Joey.
Right, it's actually not even just a skill, but last night I also got a card drop that I've been waiting forever. So, if you've been following the show for a bit, you know that I was trying to grind Last Gamble during the World Cup qualifiers because I, for a couple days, was kind of disillusioned with, I was running Harpies and I didn't love that, and I couldn't really find a deck that I liked that would compete that I also had the cards for until eventually I ended up finding a 3-star demotion build that I liked. They're creating, I guess, give myself a little credit there. But for a while, I thought that Last Gamble would be a really good fit for, especially for the meta at that time, and also that it was just a generally powerful deck. So I spent like an entire day and a half playing and grinding, trying to farm that skill, and I couldn't get it. And earlier this week, just because that's how life is, it ended up popping up for no reason. I just got it. And so I've been playing a lot with that. I did the standard kind of Desert Twister version that was around for a long time. I played around with a Magical Merchant thing for a little bit, Graveyard Manipulation heavy. I'm trying out the Knight of the Red Lotus from the new set in Desert Twister, which is a little bit of a different version of Desert Twister. And so that's, I've been having fun with lots of different versions of it, I guess. The skill's really solid as well. So I kind of got up to Gold 3 very easily, just playing around with these various builds because the deck is pretty solid, and I think a lot of people were kind of burnt out from PvP, so there haven't been as many meta decks and stuff. The other card, or the card that I was talking about that I was really excited about getting, was Gravekeeper's Recruiter. I finally got it. I've been trying to farm Odeon for ages. Every time that there have been a few campaigns, I guess, where you get bonus chests and stuff. As soon as we got the Paradox Brothers, it was incredibly easy to farm Odeon. While I was farming Last Gamble, I was trying to farm Odeon. So I've been farming Odeon for a long time. I've gotten something around 30 super rares before I got the first recruiter. And I finally got him. I have a full play set of everything else, and he was grayed out. I hadn't gotten any. But I finally got one last night, right before I went to bed, and I had sweet dreams about it. What about you? What have you been up to this week?
Well, I've been opening a lot of packs, and I've gotten a lot of the new cards. Just for whatever reason, I have had a lot of luck opening the cards. And you made me aware of the Kickfire deck. I think you got onto it pretty fast from someone posting on Reddit about it. So yeah. I started making some of these Kickfire decks. I still only have 2 Bonfire Colossus, despite having Goka, the pirate, the Pyre, I think he's called. And it's just a really fun deck, I guess. And I was building different versions of it. There's a version where you try to draw your Kickfires really fast and draw like a quick version, like a combo piece version. And then there's also the beatdown version, which I like playing more just because you can contest the board and not worry about that part. So I've been playing a bit of that.
And before you kind of move on, do you want to give us a real quick on how that deck works?
Right. So there's an old trap card, continuous trap called Kickfire. And how it works is whenever you destroy one of your own, or whenever a fire monster is destroyed by a card effect, and it's specifically destroyed, not tributed, you can put a counter on Kickfire. and Kickfire would do 1,000 damage to your opponent on their standby phase. And basically, you would put the counters on Kickfire, 2 of them down, and then you would destroy your own fire monsters. And you could do this a number of different ways. Bonfire Colossus is probably the easiest. Once you have a fire monster on the field, you can special summon this beater. It's 2,600 attack. And then you could sacrifice 2 fire monsters. So you'd sacrifice himself and also the one that's on the board. You activate your Kickfire. You activate your Kickfires beforehand, first of all. So then there's 2 counters on each Kickfire. You end your turn, and then when your opponent draws, they would take 4,000 damage. And there are actually a good number of ways to destroy your own fire monsters. There's Gaia's Soul, the Combustible Collective. What other ones? There's a bunch of other ones. But
I started collecting from the card trader 2-pronged attack. Does that one work? It seemed like it fit.
2-pronged attack.
Or is that a tribute?
It depends what it's... Because I tried the card Jigen Bakudan, and that doesn't work because it's a tribute. Destroy, yeah, this works.
Hey, there we go. So those
it's all in the keyword, yeah, destroy.
I think those are ends. They're either ends or, which I guess is normal, maybe? Normal or rare. So they're really cheap at the card trader. So that might work in maybe more of the kind of aggro one where you're contesting the board and then you can combo them out with it.
There's another good card for it. It's the Cat of Ill Omen, which lets you tutor out a trap card. You don't really tutor it out, but you get to draw it the next turn, so it's not as good as putting it in your hand, but it's a way to get Kickfire right away. So it's a deck. And then I've also made I made a new Dinosaur deck and a new Victory Viper. I've only played like a few games on PvP, and those are the more serious decks if I want to go further. But I've just put in some of the new cards I got into those decks for future play.
There you go.
Yep. All right. So there's going to be a Reddit tournament. I think it's happening now or in a few hours, but it's in a few hours, like 4 hours from now. So we're going to talk about it next week. There's probably going to be some new decks, and we're excited to see what. It's a clash of what were the top decks before, and also these new cards. So it's possible the set doesn't have any impact at all, but I highly doubt it.
Yeah, it seems like there's a lot of build-around cards that seem okay, and then there's a few specific really powerful cards that might be able to slot into decks. And so I guess the question is, how much of an impact is it if the build-around cards aren't good enough to really build decks around, but you still have all these other good cards that you can kind of just sub in? I would still say that that's a fairly big impact. It's not as big as it could be, but for instance, well, we're going to talk about some of the cards in a sec, but there's some really powerful cards in this set, so I'd be surprised if there weren't at least some adjustments made.
Based on a stream I watched on Friday night, which was DKed's stream, I think Dark Paladin is going to be one of the it's just a really good deck.
Yeah?
Yeah, with Buster Blader and Dark Magician. Because there's so many, you could just get it out immediately with the cards, like Fusion Sage, and there's a card that you specifically draw Buster Blader with. And you just get him out right away. It seems really strong. And it does piercing damage. I think that's what Dark Paladin does.
Yes. Yeah, I played against that once on the ladder so far, and it seemed okay. I happened to have Order to Charge, and so that kind of beat him, but I could see it being pretty impactful. I kind of get the feeling that if I'm devoting that many cards to one monster, I maybe would rather be running 3-star demotion, but this guy's bigger than the 3-star demotion.
It is a 3-star demotion deck, I think.
Oh, okay. Well, there you go. You do a little bit of both then.
It's our 3-star demotion or Last Gamble, I forget.
Yeah, the one I saw was not 3-star, so it might have been the Last Gamble version. He just didn't do the gambling. Not sure.
All right. we're going to talk about the World Champ Qualifiers finals. So after we finished up last week, last week we weren't done yet. You got King of Games, but I kind of gave up, and there was still a day of play. And the first place and second place in Group A, which is just North America, is D. Kayed and CreativTimmy. D. Kayed was playing under the name Kaiba Boy. He was the guy who got out ahead, like a huge lead at first, and he got taken over by Timmy for first place, and then he got the lead back again. He's the guy who runs Duel Links meta, which is great. He's got a great community. He has a Discord channel, so it's all really good stuff for competitive play. And there, there was a lot of allegations of cheating, and myself, I thought, how could this guy be so ahead? But now that it was revealed it was D. Kayed, it seems like the guy is a machine. So he's just a good player. So,
we were talking about how it actually sounds like he's literally a machine if you listen to his videos.
He actually has that joke all the time in his stream. Like people.
Okay, good.
He's like, "Oh, I'm just a machine." Like I guess he knows how he talks. Like, see, so
yeah. Know yourself.
Yeah,
good.
It's also a really funny stream. Controversy. Oh yeah, so like I said before, there's been a lot of controversy, and this is all about Timmy, CreativTimmy. So yeah, if you just go on the stream on D. Kayed's stream, Timmy is sort of a meme now of cheating. It's kind of like Skamaz. Well, Skamaz isn't as serious, but and so we're going to talk about that in a little bit, like what the whole controversy is about. Guns Blazing, a guy who's really popular in the Duel Links community, ended up 5th in Group A. In some of the other regions, we would note that Group F and Group G. Group F is Korea and Taiwan. Group G is Asia, which is like not the main, like not the bigger Asian countries, I would assume. Middle East and Africa. These two regions. Yeah.
Sorry, I think Group G might include like India, part of Asia, just based a little bit on where it looks like it is kind of geographically, but also just because India isn't listed in one of the other ones, I don't think.
I guess it's not the Far East. I guess the other parts of Asia, I guess.
Yeah, I think Egyptians, some of them are counted as Asian for some.
Well, it's Africa.
I know it's Africa, but I think it's also, I know it's in Africa, but I seem to recall that there's some sort of, I don't know, reason why they might be counted as Asian for either census.
Just Egypt?
Yeah, they're special. I don't know why. I know that they're Caucasian on like census forms, so Egypt's kind of weird. Anyway.
It's because they invented duel monsters.
That's why, yeah.
They're special. Yeah. And so the first place D. Kayed got 144,000 points, but Group F, the first place guy got 271,000, and Group G person got 221,000. And so there's Group F is Korea/Taiwan. And the two main players, from what I can tell, their lists are in Chinese, so they're from Taiwan. They're not Korean players. And as we note that Korea is the country that got Duel Links much later than everyone else. They got it like in March, I think, February or March or April. I don't remember when, but it might have been March or April. But they might have been disadvantaged for not having deeper collections than the Taiwanese players or those of many other countries.
Yeah.
And also they play, gaming is a really big thing in Taiwan and Korea, so we're not surprised that these players got such higher points.
Right. So the point about the collection disparity was that if the top players had been playing for much longer or had just put more money in or something, when the game's newer, there's a lot less time for people to farm the most important cards. There's a lot less time for people to get the gems to buy the most important cards. So there could be the situation where the very top players and the very most committed players and the very, the biggest sharks in terms of spending money might have something pretty close to complete collections, whereas the majority of players have much smaller collections. And so you already have you have the game time advantage in that you might know the game better, but you also just have this clear advantage in terms of collection that is no longer as much of an advantage now that we've had the game for a long time. Most people who are competing at that level in our little group had pretty much all the same decks or access to the same decks, but that might not have been the case in this group.
Yeah. And also Europe, the highest they got was 90k. The first place person got 90k. So
yeah, they were the slacker group.
EU plays.
EU plays, that's right.
No offense. So yeah, all the decks are posted on DKIED's site in Duel Links Meta, so you can check those out. He's been getting people to submit them to him. He doesn't have everyone's list, but there's a good number of people on that website. Mm-hmm. So the main source of controversy, YouTuber and streamer MaskScarin has been doing a number of interviews, and Decktech's going to talk about some of the interviews that were not the headliner. So he interviewed Tutpup, Top Deck McGee, and Flower.
Right.
What did you take away from these interviews?
Yeah, so it's MaskScarin, I think.
MaskScarin.
So let's see. Tutpup ended up getting third place in EU, and you guys might recall that EU, since it's so many countries, I guess, got 3 slots, whereas the other regions, I think all the other ones got 2. So I believe Tutpup is going on. He was talking about some of the highlights include he was using Gravekeepers for a lot of the climb, and 3-star demotion and Harpies. He said that Gravekeepers were really solid, but in the end he determined they were, a little bit too slow of a climb for the event. He was using a Gravekeepers deck that used Destiny Draw, which is a little bit different than what we normally see. So that might be a good deck for maybe a tournament format in which you're not trying to just grind out a ton of games like this one was, but you have instead brackets or something like that. He determined that Harpies was really solid and powerful for the final push, and he said both from playing and playing against 3-star demotion, he actually does not think that the Dark Magician version is the best version. He and Mask were both talking about kind of sleep issues with the event. Mask mentioned that he literally fell asleep during a few games and lost a few games that way, where you wake up when your phone hits your face or something like that, and your turn's over. Tutpup actually kind of mentioned that because of the lack of matchmaking in the final qualifiers, it seemed like they were mentioning that they were playing against people with all sorts of point caps. It seemed like they were just matching up against anyone who was playing at that time. And that kind of makes sense since this was an adjustment to the normal ladder system. And the normal PvP, there are no ranks within King of Games. So it makes sense that if you're King of Games, you're just playing against any other King of Games. But what that meant for this event was that those very high-level players were playing against people who had perhaps just barely squeezed into King of Games or had no aspirations of getting to the top 10, so they were just playing around with meme decks or whatever it was. And so Tutpup mentioned that this event was not about finding out who were the best players, but was instead about who could farm the most plebes without losing points and stuff, most efficiently farm the most plebes. So personally, I don't like that aspect of the game, or at least the format of this tournament. The next one was with Top Deck McGee, who ended up getting 7th place in the North America group, Group A. It seems like the competition was super fierce for the 2 spots in that region. And so top 10 is pretty, top 10 would be pretty solid anyway, but Top Deck McGee said that he wasn't really going for first or second. He just wanted that top 10 you get the prizes of the cards, but you also get a special icon, I guess. And he had mentioned that he was pretty jealous of the icon that people got for the Kaiba Cup, and that was kind of when he decided that he wanted to turn it on and become serious, and he wanted to get top 10 in this one. So he, maybe because he was just going for top 10, just going for top 10 instead of 1 or 2, was able to keep a regular sleep schedule, he said, for the most part. And he also used Gravekeepers for pretty much the whole event. He thought that the Legion version was kind of the best version for the event because it was a little bit quicker. Legion lets you ramp up, and it even lets you do some one-turn kills. So I'm assuming Legion maybe double summon as well, just to make sure that you can get those quick games in, so you don't have the problem that Tutpup had where your games are a little slow. It seems like Tutpup actually kind of went the opposite way with Destiny Draw because you have to take damage. And so you have the situation where you're either waiting for damage to be taken, and maybe your opponents are trying to really be careful about how much damage they deal to you if they kind of catch on to what you're doing, which might be the case if you're playing against the same people over and over again. So I could see how maybe making it a little bit of a quicker, more of a combo type deck, instead of making it a slower, maybe a little bit more consistent deck, would be the way to go in this type of event. Top deck, McGee ended up finishing the event using DKIED's infamous handless deck, which is definitely on the Duel Links meta website. It kind of made its rounds, I think, on the last day of the event, and just everyone started using it.
He revealed it publicly on the last day, I think.
Right. And we actually talked about a similar version before, the handless version, or a handless deck before, when it first came out and when he first talked about it. It's a little bit different than that one. I actually, you might recall, tried kind of combining handless with 3-star demotion, and ended up not liking that as much as a different version of 3-star that I came up with, but it did kind of give me some ideas, and I'm planning to revisit that as soon as I open a few cards from this new set that I'm still waiting for. So anyway, the handless deck was really solid and really quick, so a lot of people ended up kind of taking that over for the last day or so, whenever he ended up revealing it. Top Deck McGee said that his plan for the last couple hours was he just wanted to stay in the top 10. So what he would do is he would check the leaderboard every time it refreshed, which I believe was every half hour, and just see where he was points-wise. And a few of the players had talked about, at the very highest level, if you lost a game, you lost like 1,500 points, and if you won a game, you only got like 600 points or something like that. And so you had to have above 75% win rate to continue to gain DP at the very end. So he was kind of sticking with that in mind and sticking with that strategy. He would just check the leaderboard, and if he was okay, he would not play games. And so he said he didn't play very many games with DKIED's deck because that whole last day, I guess, or for a significant portion of that last day, he was just checking the leaderboard, and he didn't play very many games. He only played them when he had to. So that seemed like a really good strategy for what he was trying to do. And had he had a little bit more points, it would have been a really good strategy at that highest level too, for trying to compete for those last 2 slots. We'll talk about CreativTimmy at the very end because that's kind of what we're building up to. But one quick thing in that was that Timmy mentioned that he was still playing games at the very end. And Mask was kind of confused by that and pointed out that it didn't really make sense for him to do so. And, people can glean from that what they want. I think that was just a mistake on Timmy's part. I don't think that that's part of the outrage that we're going to talk about. Finally, Top Deck McGee said that he actually preferred the current system where a lot of games were encouraged instead of any sort of system that would cap the number of games played, because he felt that the system as it is now really rewards the players who are most devoted to the game. And I guess since he didn't have any sleep deprivation or anything, and he still got top 10, he felt like it was he felt like it was fine. It wasn't as problematic as maybe some of the other players who had to almost literally torture themselves to get to those top slots. So finally, before we get to Creative Timmy, the last one that I have here is Mask kind of did an interview with his friend Flower, or Legend something, who is someone who's pretty active in his Discord and also his real life friend. And that was a half interview with Flower and a half kind of his own recounting his story. The number one highlight for me of the whole thing was that Flower constantly forgot to call Mask by his screen name, kept calling him, I think his real name's Darren or something like that. He kept calling him Darren, and Mask was getting upset with him for that. And he also kept getting like the math a little bit wrong. He kept saying he had like 1,000 points when he meant he had 10,000, or 10,000 when he meant he had 100,000 or something like that. And that was pretty funny as well. Mask was like, "Come on, dude, get your ish together." At a couple points, Flower was actually, I think he said he was top 8, maybe 8th place or something like that. And that was even though he had to go to work and school on the first day. So I guess that's kind of reiterating the point that Top Deck McGee said, that if you maybe get a little bit lucky with good matchups and just bring the right deck and, have lucky draws and stuff, then you can compete at that high level without just going ham and skipping life like some of these players did. Flower, well, both of them actually thought that Parasite Infestation is a really good skill because it messes up your opponent's draw, it deals damage to them, and it fills a slot on the board, especially for decks that don't really have a way to use extra monsters on the board by tributes or summons or whatever. And so what Mask and I believe Flower ended up doing was taking the regular full budget Relinquish deck and just putting it in Weevil, which is a little bit interesting. Haven't seen too many people do that, but they had some decent success with it, and so I'm kind of interested in trying that myself, just kind of putting some decks that don't need a specific skill. Before, the way you would do that would be probably Switcheroo. If your deck didn't need any specific skill, you would just pick Switcheroo to fix your draws, but maybe now the way to do it is to use Parasites, because that can just be really solid when it goes off, when they're drawn naturally. He didn't include any of the whistle or anything like that. They were also talking about how the meta they saw, especially on day 1, was filled with Taya Burn, Gravekeepers, and 3-star Demotion, and that against those 3 decks, the 4-star Ladybug of Doom underperformed. They had initially put in their in their Relinquish build. And so I guess in that meta, it was not a good card for them. As you probably know, the Taya Burn doesn't really use very many monsters. Gravekeepers, most of the key monsters are either 3-star or like 7 or whatever, big tribute guys. And so it misses all of those. 3-star Demotion, we talked about it when I recommended the 4-star Ladybug of Doom. 3-star Demotion, when you summon your 7-star guys after using the skill, they're 4-star. So if they attack into it right away, they lose their guy. However, at that high level of competition, I guess players were aware of that and were playing around it, so it didn't happen very often, so the Ladybug missed a lot. So they ended up cutting it. They actually had Possessed Dark Soul as well. They ended up cutting that and just going for just a pure Relinquish deck without really any tech cards. The final points are that Mask would have preferred a format that had limited games, like the one that was rejected by Top Deck McGee. And Mask also felt that the Dark Magician 3-star Demotion just kind of dominated the meta and was definitely a problem that needed to be fixed. So that is contrary to what Tutpup was thinking. The EU player thought that the Dark Magician 3-star demotion was fine, or at least that was not the strongest version, but Mask, I guess, faced a lot more of it and thought that it was kind of abusing the game. So, do you want to... I know that we both watched the CreativTimothy, CreativTimmy one. Do you want to talk about that one, or do you want...
We could talk. I got to talk about it, yeah.
Right.
So, this was one of the more recent interviews released by MaskScarin. And he interviewed the second place guy in North America, CreativTimothy, who has showed up a bit as a tournament winner in the past. He had some really cool deck before. In the first 20 minutes of the interview, he just talked about the event and what he played. He used a machine 3-star demotion deck, and it's a pretty cool deck. Timmy explained that he has 2 accounts, and he plays on 2 different devices or phones. Uses one of the accounts just to scout the meta and see what people are playing, and then he used another account to climb for the tournament. At the end of the interview, Mask asked Timmy about cheating accusations that appeared on Reddit, and Timmy said he did not use modded APKs for the PvP play, and that's primarily because people had experiences with a certain player disconnecting when they have lethal or like a time limit loss or something like that. But Timmy said that he does not see using a modded APK for grinding purposes to be problematic. I think he said he was pretty liberal on that, the idea of it happening. So he didn't say he did it specifically, but he saw it as... He didn't see a problem with it because everyone has the same access to cards, and it's just a matter of luck to who farms the cards. And then he said he would assume most players would be concerned about cheating in PvP because it sends information to the server. So a player who would be cheating would be using a different account on a different device. MaskScarin specifically asked Timmy if he used the modded APKs, and he had no comments about that. And that's the end of the interview. Before, in Reddit, there were posts about evidence, people suggesting Timmy had ties to modded APKs. The post that's been deleted and locked had his comments on a YouTube channel. He was asking about the mod. He said he loved the mod and he donated money for it. And this is a mod that he asked for a feature to allow the mod to see the top decks of cards. So you basically have some of the Legendary Duelist skills of seeing the cards, seeing all the face-down cards and the top deck cards. As the Redditor noted it, there would be no reason to want this information for farming purposes, because for the farming purposes you get an 8K duel assessment regardless of performance. But this is some of the evidence that has been pointing out to see if Timmy has been using modded APKs. So from watching the video, what do you think about it? Like, what do you think about modded APKs in general?
Well, one thing I think is that I don't actually know 100% how they work or even what APK stands for, but it seems like, and I was a little bit, I noticed here in the notes that I wrote it a little bit oddly, there seem to be kind of 3 common ways of cheating in this game, and one of them is using a modded APK to make sure that no matter what happens in a duel, you get an 8K duel assessment. And it seems like that might be the one that Timmy was saying that he was okay with, and there seems to be pretty strong indications, in my opinion, that he is using that one on at least one of his accounts. He essentially, he doesn't admit it, but he says he has no problem with it, and the way he says, like, I've never used APKs in PvP. It's like, right. Well, why would you say that? You could just say I've never used APKs. So yeah. It seems like pretty much an admission that he uses them for that purposes. The second way of cheating, I guess, is the PvP APK, which is the one that was talked about where you can maybe see all the face-down cards, all the cards in the player's hand, the top card of the deck and stuff like that. And it seems like based on this other evidence of his comment requesting that feature, that there's some decent evidence that he might have used that type of thing as well. And that is... I think that both forms are cheating and should be prevented, but the PvP version is just like, there's no way around that. You can't argue that that's not cheating. That's just overt cheating. And then the third way of cheating would be just causing other players to disconnect and stuff. And we had a lot of issues with that before. There were a lot fewer issues with that, at least in my opinion. I only had a few disconnects, and CreativTimmy actually said that after their scores were done, there was an adjustment based on various disconnects. And so his score actually went down a little bit because he had a couple disconnect games and he got wins for a few of them and losses for a few of them. And I guess maybe Konami just deleted them from, like, didn't count them as anything, or I'm not exactly sure. But I think we're okay on that last one. One other piece of evidence that was supposed evidence that Timmy had been using the PvP mod was that there was some videos of his gameplay or his Twitch performance or something with his alternative account in which he was apparently playing poorly, or at least not at the highest level, and also he had like his win rate displayed and it was really low. Timmy explained that a little bit in his interview, in that he said that with his alt account, he was mostly just scouting the meta, so he was conceding a lot of games just to see what decks were coming up, and so that would explain the bad win rate. And the bad play was probably, he said he was a little bit distracted because he was paying attention more to the main account, and also, he was probably tired and stuff like that. So I'm okay to discount that bit of evidence as not the most persuasive, but just based on the totality of kind of the circumstances, I'm almost certain that he uses the APKs to farm stuff. I definitely agree that there's no reason to request a feature that would allow you to look at the top card of a deck if you're already getting 8K assessments just for farming. So I think that it's more likely than not that he also uses, or at least used at some point, the PvP mods.
Yeah. And also this, the whole thread on Reddit about it, people commenting were saying how easy it is to do. And I was just wondering, like, how many people are using it, how many people in the top 10 are using it, and if Konami is taking steps to ban accounts or prevent people from going to finals, how would this affect, like, because people got their rewards and people, like, someone's like number 11, they could jump into the top 10. So, like, if they were to do a fix and to punish everyone who was caught, or if Konami had evidence that they were cheating during the event, what steps could they take to rectifying the situation?
Yeah, I think there's not a ton of people in question here. There's not a ton of accounts in question. You probably only care about the top 10. You really care about the people who are presently scheduled to go to Japan, so the top 2, except in Europe, in which case it's the top 3. But you really only care about those top 10 players, maybe. And so that's a total of, I think, 60, maybe 70. I forget how many groups there were. But there's not that many people. So you can just check each account individually. I don't know how the APKs work, so I'm not sure if there's anything you can do to actually check. Unfortunately for Timmy, it seems like he's kind of made enough admissions that you can just there's enough there for him, regardless of what the server shows. APKs, even the ones that just for farming that have no effect, even if you never go into PvP at all and you only use the farming one, it's still a violation of the terms of service. So based on what Timmy has said, Konami would have every right to decide that that's enough of evidence that he has violated the terms of service and just suspend and ban his account and just not let him play at all. And they could do that for if they have any sort of, server-side evidence or whatever. They could decide to ban anyone. You don't have a right to play Duel Links. Even if you've put money into it, you don't have a right to play it. They can ban you for violating the terms of service, or even just because they think, you've violated the terms of service. It's more of a PR move than it is a legal one or anything like that. And so I don't think that it's too late to make any sort of moves that they think are appropriate based on whatever evidence they have as to any of the players, including Timmy, but any of the other ones as well. Look at the top 10, kick out, whoever's there. I don't think that there's a ton of people using it, especially if you're at the top 10. I think that it makes sense that the top 10 would use them in terms of, well, these players are performing the best, so they must be cheating. But at the same time, if you are cheating, you got to assume that you'd be afraid of the consequences of doing that. And so you probably wouldn't want to put yourself in the limelight. So I would assume that there's not a ton of players using it generally. I would also assume there's not a ton of players who are using it who are at the top 10. That just seems like unwarranted attention. That I wouldn't do that. Konami can definitely take whatever steps they think are appropriate to rescind their rewards, make sure these people don't go to Japan, ban their accounts. Any of those types of things are still definitely within the realm of possibility.
Yeah. And then there's a third place guy, Star Hitman, who could get the spot if any action is taken by Konami.
Yeah, I assume that what they would do if they wanted to actually look into this, the lazy way to do it would be to just ban CreativTimmy. I don't think that that's right. I think that he made some foolish decisions as to kind of leave a paper trail, as it were. If you're going to break the rules, then you should probably be a little bit more surreptitious about it. I don't think you should break the rules at all, but I mean, that was a little bit silly to kind of point it out and semi-admit to it. But I think what they would do, the correct way to do it would be for Konami to look at everyone, all of those 60, 70 players, kick out anyone who used any sort of cheats of any kind, and then move everyone up just based on that, all the legitimate players up, and then hopefully there's only going to be a few slots moved because there's not, I have faith in humanity that there's not a ton of cheaters up there. And so hopefully you're just going to have maybe Star Hitman move up one, or, and then you'd also have the 11th place person move up one, and then that person gets the icon and stuff. And I would just kind of move everyone in every region up, whatever number of slots are opened up by the players who, have not earned their way up into that top 10.
It's kind of, unfortunately, it's kind of the spirit of cheating in the anime. It's like everyone in the tournament.
That's true. Yeah, they were just role playing, right?
Yeah. And I was looking up the thing when you were talking about Parasite. I wanted to add this. Joey had a Parasect card in his deck because Weevil snuck it in his deck, and that's kind of how the skill happens in this game. Like, it makes sense. That's what happens. Yeah. And he tried to use it against Mako Tsunami. And he just puts it in defense mode. It didn't work or something. Like, he summoned it in defense mode or something. So, yeah. So, if you never heard of a modded APK, don't use it. It's not worth losing your account over. Just do it the hard way of farming. Farm your stuff. Decktech just got his Gravekeeper's Recruiter, and that brought a lot of joy to him. So, we're discouraging any use of the APKs.
Yeah, I think that's an important point. I mean, I don't even understand why you would do the PvP one, because that's ruining the game. It's no fun to play if you know exactly what's going to happen. I mean, I guess Pegasus enjoyed it, just messing with people, but I don't think that there's, what's the point of even playing PvP if you're doing that? You need a little challenge in your life. And in the same respect, farming, really earning those cards does add some value to them. It was really exciting when I finally got that stupid Gravekeeper. I understand the frustration and, thinking that it should be different and that it should be easier to get these cards, but that's not your decision to make. It's Konami's game. If you want the cards more easily, you put money into the game. That's how it works. And if people are doing this to cheat the system and get cards more easily, even though they seem, they might think that it's a victimless crime, it's obviously not. There's obviously one victim is Konami. And Konami's bottom line, they're a company. They're trying to make money. So if it hurts Konami, it hurts everyone, because we all suffer from if they aren't making as much money, they can't offer as much to us, and they can't put as much in this game. So it's definitely, I'm definitely opposed to any form of those APKs and the disconnects and all other forms of cheating. Super not cool. Yep.
All right. So I think if we have nothing else to add about that topic, that's where we stand on the topic. And we're going to talk about some cards, though. So Crimson Kingdom was a new set released after the tournament. It was released on Monday, I think. Monday. And some of the cards were released. We talked about a bunch of cards from the data mine, and some of them appeared in the set, and some of them will appear in other ways in the game. And we're going to talk about the ones that we are more or less excited about. So Knight of the Red Lotus is your... you really like this card with Last Gamble, right?
Yeah, I've been liking it in Last Gamble. It's not as broken as I kind of thought it would be in Last Gamble, but it's just a really solid card. I've seen it get a little bit of play in decks that are very normal monster heavy, like versions of the Harpies these days. I saw someone very recently put it in his Dino build, so it's just a really good tempo card, and those swing turn cards are very important. They've always been very important in Yu-Gi-Oh!, and this is a very good card for just kind of having a huge swing turn and kind of turning the game and winning it at that point. It's also got lasting value because it brings guys back every turn once you get it going, so really solid card.
Red Eyes Wyvern, so it's 1800 attack dragon. It's going to be a pretty staple card for a dragon deck. We did see some of those in the tournament, I think, show up, and yeah, it's going to have implications for any Red Eyes themed decks as well as just being the dragon card.
Yeah, I think that's a nice succinct summary. We've seen a lot of kind of dragon stuff popping up recently, and it seems like peak performance dragons might be the next version of, whatever it is, the kind of mid-rangey aggro type deck. Seems really solid, and there's a lot of depth there now, and a natural 2000 attacker is a easy way to get an edge in those types of matchups.
Does peak performance add defense as well?
I'm not sure. Probably.
I'm assuming it does. So this is going to be 2000 1800, and the 1800 is nothing to. If you flip him, he's still going to be a defender.
Yeah,
that's not bad. That's not bad at all. Blazing Inpachi, new vanilla 4-star 1850 0 guy. He has the use in the fire decks, the kick fire deck I was talking about, but it's just an upgrade, like the 50 points over any other card, like the regular 1800 Dunamis Dark Witch in beatdown decks. So
yeah,
and works with order to charge anything with normal monsters. Endymion the Master Magician. Really powerful card in 3-star demotion.
Yeah, I've already seen it subbed in. I'm excited to sub it into mine as soon as I get it. That's the card that I was talking about that I would specifically want to retry Handless with, because it gives you another means to discarding cards and getting some advantage from that. So I think a Handless 3-star hybrid using Endymion might be really solid. And I've also seen a little bit of play outside of it just because this card's really good. And so I think as the meta continues to develop, this card might end up getting even more play and more hype than it already has.
Goka, the Pyre of Malice, and Bonfire Colossus are the 2 fire cards that you would use for the Kickfire deck I mentioned before. And Goka, the Pyre of Malice is just a really impressive card because it does it has 3 different effects. It could be special summoned, it could have to use in the Kickfire, it boosts itself, and it makes tokens every turn. That's just a lot of stuff for a card.
Yeah, there's a lot of value there, especially with the special summon ability, because you can kind of ramp him out. Nice for the kind of more beatdown version that you were talking about.
Yep. Great Angus is a card that actually has quite of an impact, even though it's just 1800 attack. It's worse than Blazing Inpachi, but it's 1800, and it's a fire and a beast. And what do you think about beast decks? Is there still anything that could be done from the last set with the baboons had a lot of beast synergy? I mean, this card is going to be played anyways as a beatdown card, but do you think it has anything connection to any beast deck that could come out?
I'm not really seeing the beast thing happen. It seems like the beast synergy is kind of too hard to make work. It needs to work in this very specific way, whereas other synergy, like Dino synergy, is just play the best dinos, Beast synergy is you have to play beasts, and they also have to die, and then this one has to be in your graveyard or in your hand, and then you pay life to special summon this big guy. And it's really powerful when it works, but I think it's too specific of a situation. And this is a solid beast beater, but it doesn't really even fit into that beast, what that one specific situation that makes the beast really work is trying to do. So I think this card's best as a kind of beatdown alternative, especially for budget players. But up until, I don't remember when she came out, the Dark Witch, but she was an ultra rare, even when she did come out. And prior to her, there were no 1800 vanilla beaters. So this card is just super good. A lot of people, including myself, don't even have the Dark Witch yet. And so this is just a really strong card at a really good value of being only a rare for just kind of a general beater play.
Yeah, and the thing about 1800 4-stars is that there's pretty much one of each type. And Dunamis Dark Witch, if you played against a Power of the Dark deck, which is really common in the low ranks, she loses 200 attack from Yami. And this guy does not get affected by that. Mm-hmm. He doesn't get affected by Umi either, because he's a fire type, but he's a beast. And there's a lot of different other cards, like La Jin is a fiend. There's a 7-colored fish. There's a Harpy's brother. There's all these different kinds of 1800 attack guys, and they decided to release the one that has no synergy with the fields, I guess, and that works out.
Yeah.
Alright. And then Cabazools is a 1700 attack dinosaur, just the N rarity and a water type, so that's pretty important to water type. But 2000 attack for 3 2000 attack guys in a dinosaur deck is pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's just about it. He's another vanilla beater that has a good spot in Rex. Is kind of the old school budget deck that a lot of players would use, especially early on in the game. And it's nice to have a very solid deck that is very cheap for newer players, so that players can get into the game. I do not like it when the really cheap deck is easy to play and also the best deck in the format. Back in Hearthstone's kind of early days, Zoo was, in my opinion, a problem because it was really cheap, pretty easy to play, and the best deck in the format. And that combination makes for unfun games, but it's very important to have a deck that is fairly easy to play and cheap and good enough to compete at a decent level so that newer players can have a legitimate chance at playing the game and stick around and try other stuff and put money into the game and stuff. So I think this is a nice card to kind of bring Rex back onto the map.
Yep. And there's a lot of other cards. Yeah, if you open them up, I would say a set is... I really like the set, but I want to temper my expectations because of some of the whiffs. I would say it's an above-average deck, right? Compared to the other sets. It's not the best, but it's pretty good.
Yeah, I agree with that. It has a lot of value, especially for newer players who are looking for these the normal and rare cards that are solid beaters. I think there's a lot of value at the top end with those ultra rares and super rares that we talked about. But like you said, there's a few whiffs as well. So it's not the best set that's out there. If you have a very limited amount of money that you're trying to put into the game, you might want to put it elsewhere. But maybe if you have a moderate amount of money, I think that this one has more generally applicable and valuable cards than do a lot of the other sets, including the last two. I think this one's kind of the best one in a little while.
Right. All right. So we're going to move on to some speculation about Dark Magician being restricted. Before the set was released, they released a video of combo tricks, like 5 different combo cards you could use in the set. And for some reason, the one that has Dark Magician in the deck has a 1 next to the card in the deck list. This was probably the most popular topic before the cheating accusations about card limit. Mm-hmm. And everyone was saying that Dark Magician is going to get restricted to a 1. But in the Japanese version of the same video, they don't have a 1 next to the Dark Magician. I would assume these videos were released. I would assume the Japanese one would be released before the American one, but I saw that one later on. It's possible they corrected it, or it's possible that whoever made the video for the English version was being a troll.
Yeah, I think there was also one of the Redditors commented, and I didn't go back to rewatch the video to confirm or not, but one of the Redditors commented that the cards' rarities were off anyway. Oh. So there were kind of issues with the video as well, where maybe the video was made kind of early on in development and they didn't, they just didn't finish it up or whatever. So it might mean nothing. I'm okay with it meaning nothing. It may very well mean that Dark Magician is restricted to 1. The community seems to think that 3-star demotion needs to have some sort of fix. At least on Reddit they do. I don't agree with that. I don't think the deck's broken. The community also seems to think that Dark Magician is the best version of it. So in that sense, it would kind of make sense. But it doesn't make sense to me to limit Dark Magician when it's kind of such a staple card for the game's, feel and look. Yu-Gi-Oh! Has deep ties to Dark Magician. They've been giving us various copies of him. I think they just naturally gave us 3 copies of him throughout the course of the game. So it's weird. It would be weird to limit him. It would also be weird to limit him because you can still make first of all, you can still make the non-Dark Magician versions of 3-star demotion without him, obviously. But even the Dark Magician versions of 3-star demotion seem like they'd be pretty solid with just 1 of him, since you have the Dark Magician Girl Sage Stone combo anyway. So I guess maybe that would be a very slight nerf, and maybe that's all that it needs, because I don't think it needs a nerf at all. So it might make sense in that way, but I'm not like super upset about this possible proposed nerf. Like some people on Reddit seem to be ready to flip tables about it, but I also don't think that it would make the most sense.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to happen.
Yeah, you think? Do you think it was a glitch, or do you think it was a troll, or what do you think?
I think it was the development thing. Like it was like before, it was just an idea, and they put the wrong version of the list. Yeah. All right, and right now until the 20th, which is in 2 days, there's an extra legendary duelist, just roaming the fields, and it's kind of tied with the Duel-a-thon. it doesn't overlap it completely, but it helps out with the Duel-a-thon by giving out an extra person. And Reddit is a little upset that they're level 10s and 20s, and I think this kind of does tie in with the Duel-a-thon. They want an easier person to beat, so you could get your duel meter filled. I don't know.
That's true, and why don't we go slightly out of order here on the notes and just talk about Duel-a-thon then. That's a good point. I do think that the 10s and 20s are in there so that you can get the Duel-a-thon meters filled more easily, because you get more points for beating Legendary Duelist than you do Standard Duelist. But I don't know, when I commented on it, or when I posted that I had completed it, a couple people on Twitter, including yourself and one of our regular listeners, the Vegas Canuck, kind of commented that I'm out of the norm here. But it seemed to me that the Duel-a-thon event was like incredibly easy to kind of fill the rewards just by natural play. And I think that might have been intentional because they thought that people might have been burnt out from having done the World Championship qualifiers.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it kind of made it a little bit boring for me, and I wish that it were just a little bit deeper and a little bit harder, so that you had to kind of do maybe just a little bit more than your normal play. And again, maybe it's just that my normal play is more than the average person. I'm sure it's more than the average person, but it's more than most people's normal play. But like, I wake up and I do auto duels while I'm getting dressed and while I'm eating breakfast and stuff. So by the time that I leave the house, I've pretty much completed all of my my auto duels that are set for that spawned while I was sleeping. And then so it takes 4 hours to respawn. So during the day, I'll do another couple while I'm in the bathroom or getting coffee or whatever. But once come lunchtime, it's filled up again. So you could just auto duel while you're eating lunch, and then again grab a couple after lunch, while you're getting your coffee and your bathroom breaks and whatever, and then essentially you can just auto duel all day, or auto duel. You don't even have to have it going all day, but you can just auto duel enough throughout the day that you're not missing any of your standard duelists, and that's enough just there to fill up all the gauges from my experience. So if you actually sit down and play almost any games, there's not really any, like I did a few farms during the day, I played a few games of PvP during the day, but I don't really like sit down and play a ton of games. I just auto duel, and that was enough to get all of the Duel-a-thon stuff pretty easily.
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, that was all. I was going to hand it off to you. What did you think?
Yeah, whenever I do it, I let's say I do a full set of SDs and LDs in the game, I'm going to be in the middle of the third one, I think. Like, it doesn't... It's in the 150. It's like the third to the fourth. It's like the 150 point range. It's like right in the middle. And then I have to go fight the Legendary Duelist at the gate. I guess I don't play it all day. That's the difference between you and me. Like, I don't have... It's probably a thing of my phone's battery. Like, I just don't have my phone on Duel Links all the time. Mm-hmm. And back when I had a full-time job, I kind of did what you did, where I auto-dueled while I worked. And I guess, yeah, that would be pretty easy for someone who would work in an office setting, I guess, but someone who, like, is more blue-collar, they couldn't do it, I guess, or if someone's at school. Well, people have their phones out of school nowadays, so I guess they don't have an excuse for that. Yeah, it's not an issue if you have auto-duel while you're doing other things. It's not an issue at all, but I guess it's for people... And also, you have a time advantage on me, I think. A little.
Yeah. Well,
I start at 2, right? Yours is at 11?
Yeah, something like that. No,
yeah,
10? Yeah, I guess whatever it is.
Yeah,
no, you're right. Sorry.
Yeah, so 11 for you. Like, I don't like leaving it till the next morning, so I want to do it all that day. So that's another factor that goes into it, is the time region.
Yeah, that's true. And that was part of the reason why they extended it, right? Was there was some sort of issue with how they were displaying the time?
Yeah, they put the wrong time or something.
Right.
And I was personally confused because I did 2 dual meters the first day. I thought that it would come back. I didn't know it would come back every day at a certain time. So I was confused about that, which they clearly say it's coming back at this time every day, but I didn't notice. Yep. So, I mean, it's good for the game. People want it to stay permanently. I finished it yesterday. Like, I got the card and the gems. They gave a pretty good card for it that everyone can use. I mean, do you think it should stay permanently, or is it just too many rewards?
I think that there's definitely some value to increasing the rewards, but I also think that they seem to be in tune with that and on a decent schedule by increasing the level caps and dropping new Legendary Duelists fairly frequently. So maybe at some point down the line, they have a long line to go down though before they need to do it. I think that because of my auto-dueling all day, I probably level up my characters much quicker than average. I'm definitely not the fastest because I see people usually on like the same day just already recapped all their characters, and I'm not like that. But I usually have, like, all my guys right now have been level capped for a little while, so I'm very excited. But I think that it's okay for me to be slightly ahead of pace because I probably am slightly ahead of pace, but it seems almost right for me, where if they keep increasing them at the rate that they do, then I have just about enough that I can have a constant stream of gems still, which is kind of what you want. You want it to be possible for people to play free to play, and to do that you need to have a constant stream of gems.
Yeah.
Even if it's less than, it could be.
Yeah, right now it seems to be the good level. Like, we don't want to ask for too much. Like, we don't want to be greedy about it, but right now it seems fine.
Yeah.
Or it's a little, it's pretty good right now. So we're going to talk about some of the 4 new cards from the card trader. And they were introduced this week. It's Supervise, Overdrive Teleporter, Eco Mystical Spirit of the Forest, and Super Soldier Synthesis. Not much to say about Super Soldier Synthesis. It's just a ritual card for a Blackluster Soldier. Eco, the Mystical Spirit of the Forest, is a counter to Taya Burn decks. And it seems like they're trying to put more cards to counter that type of deck because of it being not fun to play against. I guess that's probably the main complaint against that deck.
Yeah. And I guess now it's also a counter to Kickfire decks. So.
Yeah. That deck's fun. Well, yeah. I don't know about the other side. I don't know if they think it's not fun.
I think the cards, if those types of decks become very common, then it's good enough. But right now it seems like it's not good enough because there's not enough of those decks that you would want to run something that's a little bit underpowered just to counter them. This card's got decent stats, so it's not super underpowered, but it's also a very specific counter, so you can't just fit it into any deck.
Right. Overdrive Teleporter is a psychic card that you pay 2,000 life points to summon 2 level 3 psychics. DK had made a psychic deck, but I'm not sure if this card made the cut. It definitely had It definitely had that human cyborg guy, but you said this card's not in his deck. Yeah,
I took a quick look at his deck,
okay.
And it's I'm almost certain it's not in there because I did check it out. And the card, I looked at my collection, and there's just not any good cards that you'd want to special summon with it. So this maybe is something that's for the future, but for now it's no good.
Yeah, I didn't buy too much Chaotic Compliance at all. Like, that was the set that I didn't have the gems, or I didn't really care about. Well, I wish I had a double summon. That's a card I really want, but I still don't have one, so maybe I'll buy some packs in the future. But I just don't have a lot of Psychic cards, I guess. There's that one that clears the back row, but that's sort of decent, but you need other Psychic cards to keep them on the board, I guess.
Yeah.
And Supervise. Equipped to a Gemini monster to turn it into an effect monster, so you get the automatic double summon ability of the Gemini. And if Supervise is sent from the field to the graveyard, target one normal monster in your graveyard and special summon it. So that you could get a free Gemini monster before they use their ability from the graveyard, and it's pretty good for that. And is it worth it for Geminis? Are they going to be a thing? Because I think there are enough Gemini cards in the Yu-Gi-Oh pool in general, but are they good enough in the game right now?
Yeah, there's a lot of solid Gemini cards, and I think that if I had them, I would probably try this out. But unfortunately, a lot of the good Gemini cards are like super rares, or this one's an ultra rare, and so it's a pretty big investment to try to play it, and there's not any guaranteed payoff, because this is kind of like a deck that you just like, yeah, I'll try that out, seems like it might be fun, and it's just not worth it to me to devote all the resources. It's not just at the trader, it's also some of them are in packs and stuff, so you just have to put a lot of resources into the game if you want to try it out, and that's not something I'm ready to do at this time for just to try out a fun deck.
Yeah. Oh well. So those are the new cards you can get from the trader. No word on any cards rotating out so far. New Legendary Duelist coming out tomorrow. We had a poll about it, and actually Merrick won, which Merrick would have been the last choice for me. Like, I would have said he was the fourth most likely to come out, but people who saw the Twitter poll, they want Merrick, and I don't blame him. He's important. After we ran the poll, I saw a Japanese website that said Mokuba is going to be the guy, and they have his deck lists as well. So it's very much confirmed it's Mokuba.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Well, just assuming that it's correct, that thing is correct. We'll see if the website got it right.
All the websites have their decks on it, and people are noting how that horse guy is in the level 20 deck. He's just in one copy of the horse guy in his deck, so everyone can meme about the horse guy. But his level 30s and level 40s are interesting in that we could see them now and try to play around them for farming purposes. Level 40 deck has the two really strong 4-star dragons we saw in the data mine, which are Luster Dragon and Alexandrite Dragon. And he has some tricks with Lord of D and Flute of Summoning Dragon, as well as Kaiba Man, so he can summon Blue Eyes or Emerald Dragon right away. The main trick is playing around Negate Attack, which ends the battle phase. What are your thoughts about playing around Negate Attack for farming?
Well, I think, and I saw it on Game A, where they were just using Trap Jammer, and I think that would work fine. You can also use like Storm or something to just clear the back row before you start the battle phase. It seems like the level 40 Mokuba, if this deck is the one that he ends up using, is just going to be really easy to farm, because even the biggest guys that he can get out huge things, and he can get them out very efficiently, which would be a problem in like normal play. But he doesn't have any combat tricks or anything, so you can just use the Gate Guardian, and it's bigger than anything he can make, and so it seems like that one's going to be really easy to farm. The level 31 looks a little bit trickier, but I can see how that one can work as well. Can pull it up real quick.
Yeah, so that one has Hungry Burger, which is a ritual monster. He has a bunch of plant cards, which suck. Mystic Tomato will be a really good card if we get to get him. But in his deck, it's not. You just get another Mystic Tomato on the board. The threat is Poison of the Old Man, which does 800 burn damage, and also Ritual Weapon, which adds 1500 attack. So 2 Ritual Weapons on Hungry Burger would make it 5,000. Yeah,
so it would be a slightly different technique for this one. For the level 30, we were talking about it a little bit before the show. It seems like you'd want to use the Paradox Brothers I forget what the skill's called, but the Labyrinth Builder, Labyrinth Wall, something like that. And you can just use that to stall out, because the only thing that's bigger than the 3,000 defense would be a Hungry Burger wearing the ritual weapon, and then you can put in some stuff to prevent that as well, like enemy controllers, or the good ones seem to be the
ready for intercepting.
Yeah, there you go, ready for intercepting, because it flips the burger over, and so the armor falls off. And so if you can use that to stall out, and then the level 31 does not have the stop attack, so then you can just use whatever finisher you like. It seems like Union Attack is always kind of the best method if you have it, because you get the extra 1,000 points for the only effect damage, and you also, it's pretty easy to get to the 10,000 if you have a couple Union Attacks. So that seems like the way to go to me on that one.
And people are speculating that you can't get them yet. I don't know if that's true or not. Like, there's no proof that you can't get them. But, I mean, obviously we would like to get them so we could have more gems and another character to play and more skills and stuff like that.
Yeah, that'd be interesting if we couldn't. I didn't see that, so...
Yeah, people are just expecting him to be like a Bakura like a Yugi Moto.
Right.
Yeah.
That would, I think, make a little bit more sense to me in terms of who should be dueling, because Mokuba barely duels in the show.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I hope we get a new character. It's always fun to get new characters. We did pretty recently get the Paradox Brothers, though, so I guess I could see it both ways.
Yeah. Now Tristan's the next guy.
Just
wait for him.
Is that right?
Yeah, just wait for him. All right. So also the news. Oh, this is tomorrow. Tomorrow they're increasing the level cap to 40, so you're going to have purpose in dueling again. So
That's
you're
right.
going to level everyone up again. That's a lot of gems coming our way, a lot of gold, a lot of cards. And we looked at the data mine. There was a data mine from February, and it actually had a lot of the Crimson Kingdom cards, so that means these cards could be imminent. We do expect one or two new cards for each Legendary Duelist just for leveling up, and you would only get one of these. Some of these could be repeats from last time, some of these could be completely new. And we looked at some of the cards, and these are ones that could be coming up. Toon Mask for Pegasus, Dark Magic Inheritance for Yugi, for Joey, Inferno Fire Blast or Salamandra, Mako, a field card called a Legendary Ocean, Keef, Blowback Dragon, and Ishizu Necro Valley. And obviously some of these cards are pretty famous in the TCG, and you might know what they are, but are there any ones that you want to point out specifically here?
Yeah, for Shizu, I wasn't so sure. Necro Valley seems like the most obvious one for her, but it also seems like they're kind of intentionally keeping it out. And so I was thinking maybe more likely than actually getting the card would be getting a new skill that somehow allows you to have the card, either start with it, or if something happens, then you get it. So that seems like the way to go on that one. We had a little chat about Inferno Fire Blast before we recorded, about whether it would be OP or not, because we have the limited life totals in this game, so it's a lot of damage going directly to face. I guess the question is whether we want Joey to have a good card, or Salamandra seems pretty under performing. It's kind of iconic from the show, so that's why we thought that it would be in there. And it also has the fire synergies with the new set, so it kind of makes sense that it would join the game now, but it's just not that exciting of a card. So I'm kind of on team Inferno Fire Blast.
Yeah, a lot of people online actually someone on the Reddit post said, like, it would be cool if Joey would get his Red Eyes card, and I mentioned how it's in the data mine. They were all excited about it. And they said you could combo it with Spell Reclamation and just one turn kill them or something.
It's possible. I'm not terribly concerned about that. Like, that's a pretty specific thing. If he were to get it as a level up reward, he would probably only get one. So it's not like, it's going to be breaking the game. Right now, I'm looking through his rewards, and the only good card he gives really is Heart of the Underdog. He gives the polymerization and time wizard, but like polymerization, you can get those at the card trader, so that's not super excited. The mystical sheep that he gives, which substitutes as a fusion piece, that's cool, except now we have more of those, so it's no longer semi-unique as it was before. So that's not a very exciting reward either. So I think it's high time that Joey actually gets a good card as a level up reward.
Yeah. Yeah, is that all we have to say about these cards?
Yeah, I think so, unless you had something to add.
No.
Running a little long anyway.
And the last thing we're going to talk about are the Ranked Duels Revamp coming about July the 4th. And this was mentioned before, how the seasons will reset on the 30th of every month, so it's cool. Additional ranks at Plat 4, Plat 5, and Legend 1 to 3 before King of Games. So King of Games would mean more. You would have to go through more duels to get it. And also that there will be better rewards and that players will get tickets based on how many wins they get instead of win rate, and exchange tickets for prizes. That sounds pretty exciting. Yeah,
it seems similar, I guess, to what we've done very recently in these qualifiers, when if you get to Plat and then into King of Games, you kind of got tickets. But the way it was worded, and the reason why we bring it up now is because there was a new in-game announcement, and I didn't see this in the original in-game announcement, but this new announcement says you get tickets based on how many wins you get. And I thought that was very interesting. It might be a mistake, but it does not say win rate or final rank or highest rank achieved. It says number of wins, which is a very different stat. If that was actually what's happening, then it would really encourage players to win a few games and then concede a few, and then win a few and concede a few, and just kind of farm players who are below their skill level. So I hope that it doesn't work how it actually says, but you never know.
Right. All right. And should we wrap it up?
Yeah, I think it's a good time to wrap up.
All right. So we're going to announce that we started our YouTube channel, and we started uploading all of these episodes, and we will continue to upload these episodes onto YouTube to get into that audience. If people have difficulty using podcasts, like I don't subscribe to podcasts myself. I just listen to them on websites. This would be a pretty easy way to do it, to check out our YouTube channel. And right now, we uploaded half of our videos, and we will put the rest of them on YouTube. So keep an eye out there.
Yeah, so the channel's called the Duel Assessment. And once we figure out how to use like Mob Crush or something, we might end up adding gameplay videos or other stuff that we do as well. But for now, it's just an easy way to check out the episodes if you can't get them on the podcast or whatever. It seems like this community is pretty strongly tied to YouTube, so we wanted to make sure that we were part of that aspect of the community as well.
Yeah. So that's our new endeavor. And you could also find us the conventional ways of iTunes and Stitcher. If you listen to podcasts, that's your conventional way, I guess. Check out the podcast and more at the duelassessment.wordpress.com. Patreon us. We would love your support at patreon.com/duel_assessment. Send us an email at the duelassessment@gmail.com, and continue to talk to us on Twitter at duel_assessment, me at GreenRanger HS, and Decktech at HS Decktech.
That's right. Thanks, guys.
Thanks. See ya.